Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Remember, if you're thinking of launching your own podcast, remember that I'm speaking at a virtual summit about this very subject. So sign up for my free session at the Life by Design, Not by Default virtual summit and support your podcast host. I'm just going to be talking about how any business or anyone listening can actually create a podcast or launch their own podcast and not stress about the time constraints and the tech and the learning curves that come with it. And I think it kicks off on September the 12th, and I'm on September the 13th. But I'll include the links to that on the show notes. But on with today's show. And man, do I have a treat for you today. Betsy McHugh is coming back on the podcast today from Hurdl, who I last spoke to, I think it was on episode 248. And for those of you that missed our previous conversation or heard it and have slept since and can't remember, Betsy lived and breathed the live music scene, having worked with John Mayer, Bon Jovi, as well as in management roles for artists including Keith Urban and Hunter Hayes. So as the founder and CEO of Hurdl Enterprises, Betsy is pioneering the de-anonymization of persons actually in event venues with a new kind of entertainment experience. So I invited her back on the show today to learn how this wearable technology is actually bridging the gap between artists and the audience while being both accessible and affordable. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Nashville, Tennessee, so we can speak with friend of the show, Betsy McHugh. So a massive warm welcome back to the show, Betsy. We last spoke on episode 248 back in April 2017. Hey, where's the time gone?
Oh my goodness. Thanks for having me back. And it's good to still be around too.
So for anyone that did miss our previous conversation, can you just tell them a little about what you do and how Hurdl is actually transforming live events?
Yeah, I mean, well, what we do is I really have a belief that everybody likes to be said thank you to, but personally, right? So what we do is we connect artists and teams with the people in the audience by making them part of the experience. So we turn everybody in the audience into a pixel of light by giving them an LED wearable that they activate. And now the artists and teams can have a conversation with them by text without having to download an app, which is the great part.
Wow, yeah, at last we can get rid of the apps, because who wants another app in their life that you delete as soon as you leave the venue, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. And, you know, that was a big part of the technology that we went out to build, is that, you know, getting people to download an app is just another ask, right? We wanted to make it as mindless and seamless and easy for them to just join in a conversation with the artist or team without having to take a whole bunch of extra steps.
Now, when we last spoke, you had graduated from Techstars and you had this Pixl-led LED wearable device that was enabling bands to actually communicate directly with their fans at concerts, which is incredibly cool on itself. But, I mean, can you bring listeners up to speed with what's happened since we last spoke?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've done 87 events so far. So probably that's 77 more than last time we spoke. And it's been amazing. I mean, what I'm really seeing is that it's having an impact. It's not a light thing, this experience generation, this idea that people really want to be part of a communal experience. They want to be included. They want to be thought of. They want to be remembered. And that's really the power. Somebody said to me recently, you know, some of the best ideas are really simple, which is make people part of it, the experience, let them have a great time, but also talk to them and thank them. And now we can continue to have a conversation with them. And so it's been really fascinating to kind of see what can happen once you connect people, right? So we've helped artists and bands increase their merchandise sales. We did a campaign recently where an artist on Atlantic Records had a new merch line coming out. And so we had just completed their tour. They now had the ability to talk to all those people that actually came to the tour. And they were able to send a text message out to everybody and say, hey, we have a new merch line. Do you want to buy? And I couldn't believe we did 99.4% click-through. and they were able to increase their per head with merchandise by $1.20. And so, it's really just solving a really big problem in a really simple way, I think, is that once you know who's coming to your events, those are your most valuable fans. Those are the people you want to maintain a relationship with. And then when you can talk to them, you can also give them first opportunity at new merchandise, or you can do a lot of, you can just continue the conversation, which can be meaningful from a monetary standpoint, but it can also be meaningful from just being able to maintain the connection with them.
And it's so refreshing to hear your ethos there and about just talking to people, engaging with them and thanking them. What a big difference that makes, because global brands recognise that live events are filled with potential customers, and in their overexcitement they get a little bit overzealous. Their approach to engagement often involves techniques fraught with data and privacy concerns, such as facial recognition and biometric screening being two especially hot topics right now. So can you tell me more about how Hurdl was actually found a solution to that problem using these LED wearables, and found a solution to this problem using these LED wearables to provide an opt-in experience, and as a result, off the charts one-to-one engagement results?
Yeah, I think that's the really important part, is that, we're giving the fans something as soon as they walk in the door. And we're saying, the artists, and I say we, but what we are is we're the platform and technology that allows the artists to be the ones in the spotlight, right? And so they're just using our platform. But what we're doing is we're able to give everybody something as soon as they walk in the door and say, thank you for coming, right? You're important part of this experience. And what we find is by actually just being really transparent with everybody and saying, hey, we appreciate you coming. Here's something. We're going to make you feel really special tonight. I'll never forget going to a Matchbox 20 concert 10 years ago, and Rob Thomas going on and on and on about how this is 2 hours to just forget about all you're worried about in the world and just be real, right? And just enjoy this experience. And that's really what happens is we're going to be clear with you. We're going to give you this. If you want to be part of the experience, you can text and activate, and we're going to start. You're both going to be able to be part of the show, but we also want to stay connected to you. So it's all very upfront and transparent, and that was really important to us. So, and I think it's really important to the fans. We're all fans, right? We want to make sure that we know what we're opting into, and with all the privacy stuff going on right now, we want to make sure that, we're solving these problems of identity and communication and direct to consumer. And really the real problem which was why Hurdl was founded was you can't say thank you other than over the microphone, right? You could say thank you very much for coming to a whole bunch of people all at the same time, but we wanted to make it, an opt-in way for fans or for artists and teams to be able to thank the fans for coming to the experience, but do it in a way that's very direct, right? And so fans have the option. They can sign up, and what we're finding is most of them do, right? And so that's the great news, is that, when you say thank you and you say, hey, we're going to make this an even more exciting moment, they're going to be there, and it's going to be clear and transparent and authentic and fun and exciting and memorable.
So just to help listeners visualise exactly how it works, if I was going to see my favourite band, which is The National, and upon entering the venue, I was given the LED wristband, and then it's activated via SMS. What happens next, and what is so valuable there?
Yeah, so what happens is they get to the event, they get given their LED wearable. We call it a Pixl because we're turning them into a pixel of light, right? And then on that wearable, they're instructed to text a unique code that's actually attached to the technology inside the wearable to a short code. And then that begins the conversation. So that's the point at which they say, we're inviting you to be part of the experience. Thank you for coming. If you want to join in, then, continue on to the rest of the conversation. And then from there, we do even more, privacy positive. At that point, we say, okay, what's your birthday, right? To make sure that we're being COPPA compliant and we're not capturing data on 6-year-olds. Hopefully no 6-year-olds have a phone, but that's a different story. But then we're able to have everybody opt in and then join the experience, and then we can also ask them a bunch of questions, right? So we did a really amazing event where one of the questions we asked was, have you or anybody in your family ever served in the military? And where our system is built that there can be a moment during the show where the artist stops and says, let's take a moment and say thank you very much to our men and women who've served our country. And what you start to see, first of all, the lighting director can then light up just the veterans in the audience or anybody who's answered that they're in a military family. But then you start to see people looking at the people next to them and seeing their wearable light up and shaking their hand and thanking them personally for their experience and for their service, right? And so it's just really, really powerful because what we're able to do is make them part of a global experience, but also call out those groups of people that have maybe done something special or having a birthday, or even if they're cheering for the Dallas Mavericks, right, versus the Clippers or whoever they're playing that night, right? We can light up based on who they're cheering for. One other powerful example is we did an event where one of the questions we asked was, or the client asked was, do you know anybody on the autistic spectrum? And we were able to take a moment in the middle of the show. It was obviously a benefit concert, and we lit up everybody who answered yes. And it was so powerful to see all the blue, which is the color for the charity, Autism Blue, light up, because then it made you really actually have a visual of how many people were affected. And then that was able to just drive that memory, ingrain that memory in people, and then we're able to serve them up the opportunity right there on text to say, yes, I'd like to donate $10.
Wow, they're amazing examples, really are. But am I also right in saying that you're uniting artists, venue organisers, sports teams, promoters, and of course bands, so they all know exactly who is in the audience and engage with them directly? So you're bringing them all together, is that right?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's exactly right. Michael, I just was at the Polestar Awards, right? And hearing even people as big as Michael Rapino saying, we're not selling 30,000 tickets, we're selling 30,000 barcodes, and we don't actually know who those people are in the audience. We know that there's a bunch of barcodes there. And that's a big problem because you can't communicate with them in real time. You can't send them a text message. You can't talk to them, and you certainly can't maintain a conversation with them afterwards. And so technology is a really powerful thing. You can have all these sensors and all kinds of things going on to try to figure it all out. But what I've found is that the experience and the ability to connect people directly with technology they already have in their hands is the most powerful way to start to identify who's there so you know them. And then you can maintain the conversation with them after they leave the venue. That's the whole reason I started this company, right? I'm building artists' careers, watching them go into clubs and staying after, when I was managing Hunter Hayes, he would play a club and he would stay after and he would personally thank every single person in the venue for coming, right? Yeah. But then you get to theaters, well, that's a lot more people. Then there's only so many hours in a day, right? And so it's not for lack of desire for wanting to go say thank you to every single person. It's just limited by time and human need for sleep and all kinds of things, right? And so, and protecting those vocal cords, right? You don't want to talk too much. All those things come up. And so that's really it. It's really just a way to identify who the people are in the venue, make sure they have a great experience, change the way they have the experience, and make them part of the show so that you can continue the conversation with them and connect them with the team or brand or artist for a long time, right? The conversation doesn't stop after they leave the venue.
Absolutely. Now, here in the UK, I attend the Glastonbury Festival every year, which has over 20 stages, 1,000 acts playing over 3 days. So something like this could be huge for festival organisers, couldn't it? I mean, is that something you've explored?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In fact, we have a lot, we've spent the last couple of years just proving the technology works, getting all the kinks out, right? And Glastonbury is a big one, right? We want to make sure we're ready to go. And so we're now really ready to go and really starting to do a lot. We're on the Lady Annabelle and Darius Rucker tour right now. So we're really starting to work with these much bigger events. And the great part is the technology is dialed in, the effects are dialed in, the lighting director knows how to control it all. And so we can go as big as we want to go now.
Now, it feels like this year, like I've been to quite a few tech conferences this year, and the big message that is talked about everywhere is we're in the experience economy right now. And on top of that, I read a great quote from you where you said, when people are seeking experiences, you have to go to them where they are and when they're in a good mood. And everybody's talking about creative experiences, being experience makers. But what is the secret to giving fans that engaging experience that they're actually craving?
I think it's really simple. I think it's making them feel important, right? Is actually it being something much more profound than just talking at them, but bringing them into the experience, right? You can have all kinds of incredible effects going on and all these things, but once you actually become part of something, I think that's the secret. And I think once you go to them when they're paying attention, when they're in the moment. There was a great article recently with, I think it was St. Vincent and Live Nation did an experiment where they put biometric sensors on everybody in the audience and proved that, people, when they're having an experience, are just, their senses are on, they're absorbing everything better. So it's a great opportunity too for brands, instead of being inside of these venues where there's a big billboard up there, which is fine, and one important part of their impressions and how they can get consumers to understand who they are. But when you actually go down deeper into being on their body with a wearable, telling them they're important, right, and making them part of that experience, I think that's kind of the secret, is get into their psyche in a way that fulfills their innate desires to be part of something bigger, right? You create this sense of community. That's where they are. That's where they're ready. That's where they're willing. That's where their sensors are, their sensory systems are as open as they could be. And if you can deliver them more then in that way, that's the golden ticket, right?
Absolutely. And there could be people listening to us all over the world from a variety of backgrounds, whether they be artists, venue organisations, sports teams, promoters and brands. So are there any other use cases that you can share with us today that will provide an example of how they were received by each of those touch points involved?
Yeah, I think, Lady Annabelle and Darius Rucker is a perfect example right now. We're out there with Synchrony, which is the brand, right? And the brand has come on board and they've said, we want to go create these memorable moments that will start to plant a seed with consumers, because we've never been a consumer brand, that will propel our messaging going forward over a much longer initiative that they have going, right? But this is the seed planting time for them to say, hey, Synchrony is an institution that we haven't rolled out a consumer product yet, but we may in the future, and we want to just start planting the seed with the right fans. And so they've come in a really powerful way. They have a great saying, go big or go home, right? And so they've come in and they've said, let's turn this audience into a real wow moment, right? And so on the Lady Annabelle and Darius Rucker tour, they've come in and they're really powering this idea of giving the fans something bigger, something memorable, something more. But then they also have that branded piece that the fans get to take home, which is the wearable, that then ends up sitting on their shelf, right, when they get home, or on their kitchen counter, or whatever it is. And so it just becomes an opportunity for those brands to have more and more moments in front of the consumers.
So what's next for you guys? Is there anything else you can share about the future and your vision?
Yeah. So right now we've gotten to a place where we used our version 1 Pixl, right, which has been out in the market, and we tested and created a real baseline for understanding how many people are going to activate just for the incentive of getting to be part of the experience. And we know that's far greater than 60% in any given scenario, right? We've tested it across casino residencies to sports teams and sports games to amphitheater concerts, club concerts, millennial audiences, EDM audiences, older generation audiences, country audiences, and it's pretty consistent right across the board, right? So we now have this baseline to say, if you give the fans an LED wearable, they will activate it and start a conversation with you so you can identify them and continue a conversation with them for the simple joy of getting to be part of the experience. So next is we're rolling out a version 2 wearable, which will be a brighter and longer lasting wearable. It has a little bit of a slicker design to it. But what we'll test on top of that is also what other incentives can you give them for activating and joining into the conversation, right? So once we have that baseline number, which is really important to establish, we can start adding on different software capabilities inside the text conversation that say, if you activate, you're also going to enter to win the ability to go on court at halftime or meet the band or get a $5 Uber gift card to use on the way home or a discount on merchandise, whatever it is, right? So our job is to continue to expand the technology in a way that allows this communication mechanism, which is what really Hurdl does, right? Allows you to communicate directly with the consumer by giving them a more immersive experience. And so now we're just adding on those layers of what other incentives can you give them that benefit everybody in the ecosystem.
Wow, it's incredibly exciting what you're doing here. But
Thanks.
It really is. But I mean, before I do let you go, I must ask that you remind the listeners of where they can find you online and also contact a member of your team if they have any questions, because I think in this age of personalisation and experiences, I think there's a lot of alarm bells going off in people's heads right now.
Yeah, great. Well, so our website is hurdl.com. It's HURDL.com. And anybody is welcome to reach out. Our email is hello@hurdl.com.
Fantastic. Well, I always say at the end of every show that technology works best when it brings people together. But the tech that you've created there does bring thousands of people together in one arena at any moment in time. But at the same moment, it also gives them a personalised, unique experience. And there is just nothing more valuable than that. So a big thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much, Neil. It's so great to talk to you again, and I look forward to next time.
I love how Hurdl is able to gather audience data by giving fans a simple LED wristband upon entering a venue. And the most important part, of course, is attendees then choose to activate it via SMS. So Hurdl are essentially providing a unique experience and getting permission up front so they can completely avoid being creepy like so many other marketers out there. And it's also interesting that on average, I think it's around 67% of the audience actually activate, and 95% of those that do will happily answer up to 5 survey questions, because they're also dealing with that what's in it for me question. So in return, they receive special offers, merchandise deals, and much, much more as determined by the organiser. But if you park all of that to one side, that LED wristband allows them to be part of the light show at the event. And I've seen something similar that was done, I think it was Coldplay in Glastonbury, which was just phenomenal. When you see 80,000 people with wristbands and they're moving in time with the music, it is quite an experience. And I'm a sucker for stuff like this. And of course, I'd be one of those that would sign up. But what would you do? I'm curious about your thoughts about everything that we've talked about today. So as always, email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, or tweet me at Neil C. Hughes. Tell me if you've ever encountered these wristbands, and also, what is your best concert you've ever been to? What was the best experience, and what was it that made it so special? So a big thank you for listening. Come back and join me tomorrow. We'll do it all again and keep those messages coming in. But until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.